Hi, I'm Dr. M. Kamakshaya, open source software evangelist and also a freelance trainer of data science and analytics and a full stack developer. For the past few videos, I've been filming how to write programs using VBA. In my previous video, I've explained how to understand operators practically with the help of examples. In fact, I'm going a step back because I thought I should talk about a particular concept called declarations. Actually, right from the beginning, I'm just declaring the variables in the preamble of every procedure, but I didn't talk much about uh, variable declarations. I should have talked about this concept when I was dealing with a concept called data types. But I thought it is a silly thing, but I mean, which doesn't require much explanation, but I thought it's not proper on my part to go, okay. Now, whenever we are trying to write either a sub or a function, we need to deal with, because these demonstrations related to a particular area of operations called data science and analytics. In data science and analytics, we'll be processing the data. So the, while processing the data, we need to know about what are different types of data, and based on the types, we'll be processing the data. Suppose if it is an integer, we have a kind of activities. If it is a long decimal, and there are quite a few types of data in VBA. So based on the type of the data, we need to go ahead. For example, how it is, why it is so important in VBA. So let me tell you, while I was explaining of the data types, each data type has got a range. Suppose if you define your data type as a byte, now that is, you cannot use any value beyond 255 for byte. And if it is a decimal, then the range of the data is going to be something different. See, the range can be pretty high. It is going to be plus or minus, and some, I think, billions and billions of values. Now, if it is an integer, then you may not be able to go beyond 32,767, something like that. So each data type has got a peculiar range. Now, the topic that I'm talking now is not related to the range of the data types. I already spoke about the data type. I'm going to talk about the declaring the variables, and the data type and declaration of the variables are intertwined. How? When you are declaring a variable, you need to know what is the type of the data. If you are leaving it blank, then VBA try to imagine that it is a variant. So it automatically declares any undeclared variable as a data type of the type variant. Now suppose if there is a small example here on the MS Office documentation, this particular statement, the first two data types are not declared using the data type, and the third one, I mean the first two data variables are not declared using the data type, and the third one is declared using explicitly using a data type. These are the three different variables, and the third one is declared. The first two are not declared. Now VBA assumes that these first two data variables are of the type variance. Now it doesn't assume, it defines these first two data variables as the type variant, and the third one is defined as integer. Now the problem is, whenever you just leave the data variables like this, not caring much, VBA is going to earmark huge amount of memory, because since it did not know anything about these variables, VBA need to handle a peculiar situation that any moment user like you and me may be assigning anything to it, okay, except strings and text. Now since VBA knows the third variable, that it is an integer, now VBA has an idea that it need to earmark a memory size which accommodate anything less than 255, the size 255. that is actually the size of the integer, 0 to 255. Now the variant, since we did not care much, it can be a long, it can be a decimal, it can be a double, or it can be a simple byte kind of thing. So now, since VBA did not know the type of the data variable, it is just going to allocate huge amount of memory to this variable. That is not going to be a good practice. That is what I'm going to talk in this video. This is one important aspect while declaring the variables. The other thing is there are three types of statements which we need to know well before going to declare the variables. They are public statement, private statement, and static. Okay. Now, whenever we uh, declare a variable as public, and that is going to be there for entire module irrespective of the procedure. Now inside the procedure, each procedure, we can convert that particular variable into any other type of data. Just like I can make it as a string, I can make it as integer, I can make it as, I cannot make an integer into string and string into integer, but as long as this is a number, here in this example is a string, but I'm talking about number. If your data variable is a number and it is long, you can make it as an integer, byte, and also double, decimal, anything. So that is the advantage of this private statement. Now whenever you use static, now this private and public is no longer valid. So that value is going to be a constant irrespective of the way we are trying to write the program. Now in this example, the private and public statements are used just before the variable, but that is not going to work in your program. I'm going to explain you this situation with the help of an example. Now what I do, I am going to declare a variable that is going to be the public I as long. Okay. Now inside my subroutine, I am going to declare a variable. Please be mindful that this is not going to, you cannot put private here. Okay. Dim I as integer. Now same I, here you have I, and I'm redeclaring the same variable, but this time as an integer. Now I assign an integer value. Please behold that the integer value cannot be beyond 255. Okay, I want to make it explicitly below 255, less than or equal to 255, in order to demonstrate you how this interchange happens within the program. Now I'm going to make use of a peculiar feature, which is a debugger. To make use of the debugger in your VBA module, you need to press Ctrl G. Now this is called immediate tool, a small software tool inbuilt available inside VBA. Now coming to the point, actually I didn't talk much about this programming concepts of VBA earlier. VBA has a compiler. It is not an interpreter. It has no interpreter. Some of the languages like R, Python, and a couple of other, they all depends on interpreter, which means you can test the code when you are writing the scripts. But the programs like VBA, C, Java, they're all compiler based languages. They don't have the testing mechanisms. That is why we have a peculiar mechanism called debugger. Now what in my earlier programs, I used to print the results using a statement called message box. But in this program, I'm going to introduce you this immediate feature in our VBA program. If you want to make use of this immediate feature, just like it looks like a console or terminal, just like in Python and R, it is an interpreter. It is not an interpreter, but it is kind of output window. Now if you want to make use of this immediate, you need to use the statement debug print. Okay, now type name, this I spoke in my earlier video when I was talking about the data types. Now let's see whether this I is coming from outside of the procedure or inside of the procedure. Obviously this should be inside of the procedure because we have declared I as an integer, and we also assign a value which is convenient to the declaration. Now when we run this program, you see this is an integer. Now what I do, I just remove this integer, because as long as you declare it as integer, it is going to be an integer. Now I leave it vacant. Now what I'm trying to do is that this is no longer an integer. Now VBA defines or declare this variable as a variable, okay, and that is not going to be a good practice. But anyway, now this time what I do, I go back to the, okay, I think now you have the data types here. I'll pick up a value which is the long. A long is a value which can accommodate beyond 255 and close to a billion. Okay, now I copy this, come back here and paste. You cannot use comma because that is going to be the text. Now this is no longer an integer. I think now VBA thinks that this is not an integer, it is long, because the value is not an integer value. I mean, it's not convenient for the data type integer. Now it is beyond the range of the integer. Now when we execute this program, you see you got the long. I'll just delete this and re-execute. Now it will ask you, I think my sub, just correct run. Now you got the long. Now what is happening inside the program is that we have a variable outside the procedure which is long, and now I want to make use of this data variable. Okay, now you can, whenever you declare the data variable I inside the procedure, it is no longer an integer, it is going to be the public variable. Now the I is not a private variable. Now let me put the private before, so that to give you confidence, you may be private. Now this is private, which means I is inside the subroutine. Now when we execute the program, you see we are still using the variable which is defined outside the procedure. It is no longer, now the I is not private variable, it is the public variable. That is what all I wanted to speak in this video. Okay, this is for this video now, and I will continue this data type and also the declarations in my next video with a different fashion. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the new content, and don't forget to subscribe to my video channel if you like this video.